give flesh and meat to the meaning of that song, "We are fighting for Islam." Oh, yeah. And you know the other part of the song is that, "And we will surely win." That's right. And so we are gearing up to fight the enemies of truth, to fight the enemies of God, to fight the enemies of the rise of our people, to fight the enemies of Islam. Some of you know that in 2010, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he published a book entitled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2. And he had a message that he delivered in Atlanta entitled The Real Children of Israel. And that was the occasion to debut the publication of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2. And from that day forward, he organized the research group to help him to beat back the charge of anti-Semitism, yes, that has unfairly been attached to his name and his noble reputation. I mean, it's personally offensive to me. It should be personally offensive to us that a man so noble, a man so honorable, a man so righteous, that if you just do any bit of small research about him, you see that those that have written about him for years have affixed to his name anti-Semitism. So from that day forward, we began to fight and to push back against this charge. But again, Minister Farrakhan is not just the leader of Muslims. He's not just the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. For the past 40 years, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been the principal leader for black people in America. And I would go so far as to say he has been the chief voice of the voiceless and all oppressed people around the world, because as we just witnessed, the minister's work is not just confined to America, and I again say it's not just confined to the Nation of Islam, but everything that the minister has done, all of his initiatives, all of his plans, all of his dreams, all of his visions, all of his goals and objectives have been for the improvement of the quality of life and the total liberation and salvation of the near 40 to 50 million black people in America, and those in the Latino, in the Hispanic, and even in the poor white community. So the minister has not been a narrowly focused man. Right. The reason why I emphasize this is because we believe that all of our people owe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan a debt of gratitude. We believe that all of our people should be encouraged and invited to defend the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because in defending the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the defense of black leadership and the defense of the best among us. That's right. And yet at every turn, beloved brothers and sisters, we go back just a little recap of history. Some of us may be too young to remember that in the 1980s, Minister Farrakhan borrowed $5 million from our brother in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi. Why did the minister borrow $5 million? Because he wanted to help black America go into business, specifically the personal care business, the beauty product business. Do you know, beloved brothers and sisters, we spend millions or billions of dollars in trying to beautify ourselves? We spend millions and billions of dollars trying to groom ourselves. Long before our brother Chris Rock did the excellent documentary called Good Hair, where he went into the nuts and bolts and the details of that industry, the minister was dealing with that issue back in the 80s. And he had found a solution for it. He was organizing us to pool our resources since we are the #1 consumers of beauty and personal care products, but we're not the #1 producers. So the minister borrowed $5 million so that we could establish a product line. At that time, it was called the Power product line. Some of you who may be familiar with the Eating Fresh line, it is kind of like a derivative of the original Power product line. But when the minister was rolling this out, the Jewish leaders came out. And they began to write articles denigrating the minister, saying, would you buy toothpaste from this man that is an anti-Semite? Mr. George Johnson of Johnson Products was excited about the minister's initiative. And he said that Farrakhan, we will produce it and help you help black America. But since his distributors were Jewish, they told Mr. Johnson, if you help Minister Farrakhan, we will ensure that all products will sit on the shelves and go bad and you won't make no money. You have to close your doors. So Mr. Johnson, out of survival and self-preservation, he had to go back to his brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and say, Minister Farrakhan, I've been threatened. I can't help you help our people. Even a black bank, and you've heard Student Minister Anthony Muhammad talk about how ludicrous this was back in the 80s. The minister couldn't take $5 million home and put it under his mattress like some of us might do. He had to take that $5 million and go and deposit it in a black bank. But the black bank, because of pressure from the Jewish community, they called the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and say, Minister, can you please come and take your money? The reason why that's so ridiculous is because just a small understanding of banking and finance, we understand that whatever money we put in the bank takes our money and then they lend our money and they make money off of our money. So a $5 million deposit in a black bank, the bank directors probably felt like it was going to be Christmas around that place. But because of the threat from the Jewish community, they had to even forego the potential profit that they would have gained from doing business with the minister. Fast forward to the dope busters. Some of us, again, and this for all of our young brothers and sisters, need to go back and study the history of the rebuilding of the nation. A lot of times when we talk about the history of the nation, we're looking at prior to 1975. And that's an important segment of history. But the period of the rebuilding from 1977 till today is critical for us to understand. Because this is the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Fard Muhammad backing him, approving him, and authorizing him. All praises due to Allah. But all the while the members of the empire were in and out of the black community. The Jews said, they're proselytizing their religion. We don't want them in poor communities where there's crime and violence. Now the FOI went into these communities without guns. The FOI went into these communities without mace, without handcuffs, without batons, without carnal weapons. We just went in with our teaching. And it began not so much as we going in there to fight crime and violence. We were just going in and distribute our paper, which is our way of devotion. We were just doing what we do, and we noticed that when we did what we had been ordered and commanded to do, there was this magnificent side effect. The people noticed it. Say, hey man, can we get y'all to stay here for a little while longer? Because when y'all show up, when the brothers show up, it's peace in the hood. The drug dealers find somewhere else to go. The thieves and robbers and the rapists find somewhere else to go when the Muslims show up. But it was the leaders of the Jewish community who had a problem with that. And I think over this now because I want you to understand the context and the historical backdrop of this fight and this campaign. Because this is the beginning of a national campaign that involved not just the, I would say, fight against white supremacy. You know, we were taught in the early days of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, that the white man is the devil. And that's true. But you know, everybody has a head.
Come on.
And you know, they say something about the brain. They say you can have a 200-pound man, a 300-pound man, a 400-pound man, but his brain is only about 3 pounds. So even though his brain is not as large as the rest of his body, it controls the rest of his body. The brain thinks for the body. The brain hears for the body. The brain sees for the body. The brain speaks for the body. So even though those in the Jewish community say, why are you always upset with us? We're only 2 or 3% of the population. But that little small numerical population controls the world of white supremacy and white domination. And they have come out to fight the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So again, we are fighting for Islam.
Yes, sir.
The question becomes, are we ready?
That's a good question.
Are we ready to fight those that have been our enemies? Are we ready to fight those who slandered the name of a good man? Are we ready to fight those who would love to make your membership, brother, in the Fruit of Islam class an illegal act?
That's right.
Are we ready to fight those sisters who would like to make your membership in the MGT class an illegal act? See, again, the history, prior to 1975, we had to fight. Sometimes physically. But we're not even being asked to fight physically today. Certainly asked to be prepared for whatever. But all throughout the Bible and the Quran, you find references to the defense of the faith. Somewhere, I think it's in Peter, it says something about, and be ready at all times to defend the faith and the hope that is within you. The Quran is in harmony with the Bible when it says, hurl truth at falsehood to knock out its brains. And falsehood is an ever vanishing thing. I say to us, the victory for us has already been assured. We just have to make sure that we are in the right position. We know the play. See, I know we're going to go home and watch Sunday football. Well, let me tell you, and even my favorite players, they're great. They have great talent and ability. But long before you and I see them score a touchdown and win the game, they had to read and study the playbook. They had to understand, okay, if I'm a running back, what do I do when this play is called? If I'm a wide receiver, how do I respond when the defense is showing this? If I'm the quarterback, when do I call an audible? Come on. So we've got some study to do. We've got some preparation to do.
Yes, sir.
We've got to bring ourselves back into harmony with our discipline.
Yes, sir. Come on.
See? I know we wait to Ramadan sometime to come back to the Sirat al-Mustaqim.
Yes.
Because living in a hellacious world as this, even our striving for righteousness, by the time you really look at your discipline, you may be 5 degrees to the left or 10 degrees to the right. But it's now time for us to put ourselves into war mode.
Yes, sir.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is inviting all of the entities of our nation to join us in this campaign. You know, it's kind of similar to how Joshua and Caleb did in the Bible. I remember Minister Anthony did a magnificent lecture once called The Minority Report.
That's right.
And he talked about Joshua and Caleb. They had to go and see what was in the promised land and come back and give a report.
Yeah.
Could we defeat the giants that are in the land? And the report was that we can take these chumps. And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his research team have been doing likewise. And we say to our nation, we can take these chumps, but we need your support.